Yu-Gi-Oh has always been a game of very few limitations or restrictions. Outside of the Forbidden and Limited list, you're mainly going to be limited by your own imagination, and not much else. That's why we've seen so many wild, fascinating, and eyebrow-raising decks throughout history. I love covering said decks, especially when they do the unbelievable and make huge waves at giant premier events like Shonen Jump Championships or the YCS circuit. But sometimes an interesting deck doesn't reach that level of competitive success, yet is still noteworthy nonetheless. I asked a few months back if you fine duelists were interested in shorter videos centered around such decks, and overwhelmingly you answered yes, leading to the creation of this series. Welcome to Yu-Gi-Oh! Jank from the Past, a series about super creative decks from older eras of Yu-Gi-Oh! That didn't reach the competitive heavens, but still should be acknowledged from a creativity and design standpoint. In this series, I'll showcase super obscure decks or much lesser known versions of meta ones. You'll learn how these decks worked, their key strategies and combos, and of course, when they were played. Without further ado, let's jump into today's topic, Convulsion of Nature, Gishki Control. First, I have to address the elephant in the room, Convulsion of Nature, a card that dates back over 20 years, first being released in the OCG's Mythological Age Core Booster Set on November 29, 2001, and in the Legacy of Darkness Core Booster Set for the TCG about a year and a half later in June 2003. Convulsion of Nature is without a doubt one of the most unique cards in Yu-Gi-Oh! History, as it truly has an effect like none other. Convulsion is a continuous spell that forces both duelists to play the duel with their decks flipped face up. This means no secrets, no more wondering if your opponent's top deck is going to save them, or if you'll be able to pull off a real-life Heart of the Cards moment inspired right out of the anime. It removes all the mystery of what's coming next, and in a way, kinda goes against everything you traditionally see in duels from the anime and manga. On the other hand, it is absolutely iconic and among the game's best when it comes to troll cards. Convulsion of Nature doesn't provide any organic card advantage, and the knowledge you gain from being able to see your opponent's draws is also traded by them knowing yours as well. So for years, this card was just mainly played to troll and piss people off, rather than anyone attempting to use it for any type of coherent or legitimate strategy. That was until one little random card was released right at the beginning of the Zexal era. Gishki Diviner was that card, and it changed everything. Coming out of Generation Force, Diviner was a level 3 Sea Serpent water monster with 1200 attack and 800 defense. Although I'll mention right now, for the most part, its stats were fairly irrelevant. Diviner's importance was of course held in its monster effect. Once per turn, you can declare one card name, reveal the top card of your deck, and if it is the declared card, add it to your hand. Otherwise, return it to the top of your deck. A cute card in a vacuum that, if nothing else, would let you know what your next card was going to be. But when combined with Convulsion of Nature, which of course would have you always know exactly what your top card was, it was a legitimate power play. Diviner had no cost, was a soft once per turn, which actually was quite relevant with Monster Reborn being legal at this time, and was a guaranteed +1 if you were able to get both cards on the field at the same time. High upside, but fairly situational is probably what you're thinking right about now. Luckily, however, Diviner being specifically Sea Serpent actually reduced the variance exponentially. Being a level 3 Sea Serpent meant it could be pulled straight from the deck with Deep Sea Diva. Diva had always been a powerhouse when it came to synchro plays, but now with the right setup, she could provide an instant +2 after resolving Diviner. At which point, you were free to synchro into a level 5 for a higher damage output, or attempt to protect the Diviner so that you could get another free card during your next turn. In addition to this, as I just mentioned, if you were lucky enough to have a recursion card like Call of the Haunted or Monster Reborn, then things would get downright stupid, as you'd be getting yet another +2 after using either card to revive Diviner. Distinct strategy between Gishki Diviner, Convulsion of Nature, and Deep Sea Diva was discovered almost immediately. One of the first instances was just a month after Generation Force premiered in September 2011. YugiTubing's own Lithium 2300 posted a video of himself playing the deck, which was completely inspired by one of his friend's builds that he used to top locals with. Lithium made some slight adjustments to the build to fit his playstyle, but the original version was super control focused and oddly enough ran 0 battle traps. This build leaned heavily on cards like Mind Crush and Trap Dust Shoot to disrupt the opponent's plays before they ever hit the field at all. Combined with Archfiend's Oath for even more free card adding, and Pot of Duality maxed out to dig for all the cards I've mentioned, and it really was unlike anything the TCG had seen at the time. Next was a duelist playing something strange at a regionals in Europe. He used the Hero Beat hybrid deck, heavily relying on these cards. It's unknown how the player fared at the event, but the build definitely was wild. The skeleton of the deck was largely the popular anti-meta Hero Beat core. This consisted of Stratos and key partner Neos Alias. Neos, despite being effectively an effectless monster, was actually excellent at the time due to its synergy with the fantastic disruption cards like Gemini Spark, Hero Blast, and Honest. The Convulsion of Nature and Diva addition to the build gave the deck an explosive opening play that netted free possible card advantage. Much like our last deck, this one leaned heavily on the idea of Convulsion of Nature having great synergy with Mind Crush, as you were guaranteed to hit your opponent's top deck every single time. Mind Crush was also solid even without Convulsion of Nature, especially combined with Trap Dust Shoot or when skillfully used after your opponent searched a card with maybe Sandgan or reinforcements of the army. Lastly, the Diva and Diviner engine also provided some much needed water monsters so that heroes could easily summon E-Hero Absolute Zero, who could be a complete handful in those days. The build was quite unique, but wasn't the only notable deck that played this obscure strategy. A plant synchro focused version did show up at the Los Angeles Regionals in California just a couple of months later in January 2012. Clearly being a synchro summon focused deck, it was much more focused on generating cards. Rather than playing the defensive Mind Crush, this duelist opted to play a playset of Archfiend's Oath, which basically mirrors Diviner's effect at the cost of 500 life points. In fact, Oath is probably superior in this particular build due to its ability that can allow a player to intentionally call the wrong card and basically mill the top card of their deck. That might sound pointless, but actually it's very important when combined with the plant engine and cards like Spore, Dandelion, and Glow Up Bulb. This duelist also made a strange and quite bold choice to play Scrub Raid in their defensive lineup, which requires a player to send their own cards outside of itself to the graveyard to immediately end their opponent's battle phase. In theory, this could be used in conjunction with the continuous spells of Convulsion of Nature or Archfiend's Oath, which provide advantage during your turn and then could be converted into defensive plays during your opponent's turn. Not the worst idea that has ever been thought up. This duel's extra deck was unavailable, but I assume it's probably just the standard synchro monsters that you would see in a deck like Plant Synchro at the time. These decks and other ones using the never before seen Convulsion of Nature engine never had any significant impact beyond maybe a fringe top 8 finish at a regional circuit when it comes to the competitive meta. However, this is just a small example and demonstration of the fact that with a little thinking outside the box and the release of maybe the right card, pretty much any random Yu-Gi-Oh card can change its reputation. And with that, we are at the conclusion to this short Yu-Gi-Oh story. If you enjoyed the video, like the new series, or more importantly, you learned something, give the video a big thumbs up and let me know what you thought of this series so I can know how to move forward. Also, consider checking out some of the other Yu-Gi-Oh stories that I'm sure are on the screen right now. Thank you, of course, for watching as always.